Have you ever started an account and made some amazing progress only to then enter into a little bit of a break-even period? Then you pick up yourself and you once again make a new equity high, but then something happens and you pretty much blow all of your earnings. And then you keep trying to get higher, but you keep blowing it out, and then you keep trying to get higher, and there comes a point at which you just lose it and pretty much you slide all the way back below break-even, which what you can call even blowing your account. Or let me give you another example. You just got funded, you got your certificate, and you're ready to trade, but 1 or 2 or maybe a week later, you got this email, breach detected, you have blown once again. So has this happened to you? And if it does, I want to introduce you to something that is going to help you transcend these kind of things, and I call it the trading thermostat. All right, so step number 1, what's the thermostat? Pretty much those are the peaks and the dumps of our lives. And it looks something like this. If you really want to make it a little bit scientific, every person has a thermostat for all areas of their lives. And pretty much we are having in this case a maximum level and a minimum level, and of course the equilibrium line that is right here. And on the y-axis, we're having pretty much the amplitude, and then on the x-axis, we're having the time. So if I just give you a very simple example, imagine your fridge being full and empty. So your fridge is going to reach a level at which it's pretty much at the maximum capacity. It is very full. And then usually what people do is you're going to go all the way down to the minimum of your fridge. Then you go shopping, fill it up again, all right? And then pretty much that keeps repeating. That is how we live. I can give you another example. Let's say about your dishes also stacking up in your sink, all right? You get the dishes stacking up, then you wash them all. Then you get them stacking up again, and then you wash them all right? This also can refer to how clean your house is or how clean your car is and pretty much stuff like this, okay? Maybe also your money. How much money can you get to the maximum, right? And you start feeling complacent, and then you start buying stuff to get to your minimum, and then you start, oh my god, I have to start saving, I have to stop spending. Okay, and so pretty much this thermostat looks like this. You're building things up to a certain level, which is your own maximum. This is the maximum temperature that you can pretty much get to, and then you're breaking those things down to also a certain level, which is your minimum, and you cannot tolerate anything below that minimum. Okay, so understanding this concept of the thermostat, right now, step number 2 to actually use this in your trading and in your life is to get clear on your highs and lows. And it all starts with awareness. So what I'm about to teach you is a universal principle that I learned from a mentor of mine who is actually not really a trading mentor, but it was for other areas of life like business and self-development. But this principle I have applied to all areas of my life. Health, wealth, fitness, relationships, whatever it is. Because in your life, you're always going to be moving between highs and lows, and you're overall going to have an equilibrium point for all of your areas of life. But usually, as I showed you, how it works is you move from the low to the high, then back to the low again, and then back to the high again. But firstly, in order to actually know what are your highs and lows, you have to become self-aware of them. And the tool that is going to help you mostly with that is journaling and tracking your data. So think about fitness. You don't really know what is happening until you start tracking your calories, you start tracking your weights, right? You start tracking your habits. And then of course, after some time you can see, okay, that many calories I ate, I gained that much weight, or I lost that much weight, and I'm following these habits. But when I start feeling good, there is a point in time where I actually start getting complacent once again, and I fall back on the old habits, right? In the case of trading, it is tracking your P&L, journaling about your thoughts, journaling about your feelings so that you know what your highs and lows look like. In the case of your wealth and your money, tracking your net worth, tracking your money in the bank, tracking your spending. Okay? So the first step is pretty much to identify what are your highs and lows. What is the usual high that you're achieving in your trading? So just sit down and think about it. Think about your results, think about your performance in terms of how good you feel about your performance, how well you're performing. Think about your P&L in terms of money. Think about like passing a challenge. Maybe you're very good at passing a challenge, right? Then what you have to identify is when and what is the moment at which you realize you feel ecstatic, you feel a little bit overconfident, and you feel at your peak, okay? That is pretty much usually that peak, that maximum of your thermostat, where you feel on top of the world, and from there it usually starts going down. You're either gonna get back to equilibrium or you're usually gonna get back to your lowest standard, okay? Then what you have to find out is what is your usual low that you're breaking down to in your trading or maybe in your life as well. Think about the usual lowest points that you're getting in your trading. Like, is it, for example, blowing your account? Is it violating your challenge? Is it a specific amount of drawdown? So maybe you find yourself reaching oftentimes like minus 5% of drawdown before you really start kind of picking up yourself together. Is it maybe the low you start fearing to execute on your trades? Is it the usual low you kind of snap out and you start over trading? What is it? Okay. And then I want you to precisely pinpoint when and what is the exact moment, the exact situation at which you kind of feel depressed, you start feeling a little bit down, and it feels like the bottom for you. Because it's at that moment when you actually start picking yourself up together and you start taking the right actions, and again, you start rebuilding. Because again, remember, you went to the highs, we identify what the highs are, and then you usually go to the lows, okay? And then from the lows, you start to rebuild back up again. But then as you rebuild up back again, you usually once again reach that high, and then usually something happens and you start falling back, okay? Now, the lows in this case are a lot more important than the highs. Okay, so if you're gonna do this right now, which I recommend you to do, make sure to spend a lot of time on the lows because you're gonna see later why. Now, after you get clear on all of those things, because if you don't get clear on them, you cannot really take action, it's time for step 3, where we're gonna start implementing an identity shift and we're going to start controlling that thermostat. And it's pretty much time to take control of your life. And it's time to also face reality. Now, here's a little bit of life here, throwing it apart from trading. A lot of people run away from their problems. They ignore things, they sweep problems under the rug, waiting for them pretty much to hit the bottom until action is taken, until you really reach that low where you feel like, okay, I have to do something about it. But does it really have to be that way? You pretty much can stop running away from your problems and face them before they actually get bad, right? Because look at this. Every action or inaction has an equal or opposite reaction. That is a universal law. It's a universal principle. Your input equals your output. What you do is what you get. Okay? And you are in control of absolutely everything. So do not blame externals. Okay? Don't run away from your unprofitability looking for another video or strategy to solve it for you. The profitability and the reality is pretty much deeper. It's you who is the problem. It is not money running out of your pocket, okay? It is you who is spending that money. It is not the market taking all of your profits back. It is you overtrading and giving it back. It is not the current season or the weather or the situation that is causing you to lose shape and gain weight. No, it is you who stopped working out. Okay? So as I keep saying, you are in control of everything, so don't blame the externals. And what you do is what you get. Okay? So another thing that I really want to share with you that has been a major shift in my life is pretty much the saying, how you do one thing is how you do everything. One area of your life will always reflect on other areas of your life. If you're late for one thing, you're going to be late usually for everything because you are a person who is usually late. If you're not committed to your fitness, then you're probably not really committed to your business or your trading as well. Because how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you're slow when you're working out at the gym, you're probably going to be slow when you're reading, when you're working, and when you're doing other things. If your home is messy, very likely your computer is going to be all over the place, your car is going to be messy, your office place is going to be messy, and your life can also be messy. Can you admit any of those things about yourself? I really hope you do, because if you do, it's great. That means you don't have ego and you're actually ready to work and take control of your life. If not, then you're usually not facing reality. Okay, so think about that. So now, how to change reality? Actually, let's get real. It's by setting new standards and controlling our thermostat. So here is the meat of this video. We become our lowest standards. Life is more about managing downside than managing upside. So you will rarely become the person of your dreams, but you'll always be the person that you can tolerate. So think about that. We are usually not the highest version of ourselves that we can imagine. We all want to be extremely profitable, make $1 million a year, live wherever we want to live, get all the things we want to get. We have all of those excessive dreams that we really want to achieve, okay? But are we those people? No. We're simply the lowest version of ourselves that we can accept. And that is how humans work. We are usually tricked into motivation, visualization, affirmations, writing down our own goals, visualizing every morning, affirming, and trying to really get to that highest version of ourselves, okay? But that does nothing because you still tolerate your current self and you take no action to change it, right? Now, listen, that might sound a little bit demotivating, but it's literally how humans work. We are tricked into these things right here, but we're not really shown the real thing, okay? And pretty much if you actually want to achieve your dreams, you have to turn them into standards. And you have to stop tolerating your current, which is your lower self, okay? And this is why also I showed you in the beginning, I told you that the lows are actually more important. Because what I'm about to show you right now is that if you actually control the lows, the highs are immediately gonna get better. Meanwhile, a lot of us are simply focusing on the highs. We're all focused on that one thing that we really want to achieve, that profitability stage, that payout, that funded account, that millionaire lifestyle, that Lambo, whatever it is, right? We all focus on that. But not a lot of us are actually focusing on controlling the downside and really starting to become a better person by working on our worst moments and on our worst things that we're usually doing. Okay? And if I pretty much give you right now an example with the thermostat, let's say that your highest point right now is you pass a challenge and you make 10% profit. And usually you spot yourself that after you do that, you fall back to bad habits, you start over trading, you get all excited to start getting a payout, you get to break even, and then as you get to break even, you get pissed off and then you blow your challenge. And then as you blow your challenge, you say, okay, this time I'm gonna take it seriously. You make it once again back up, but the same thing keeps repeating. And why does it keep repeating? Because you still have this as your lowest standard. You're still tolerating a blown challenge. Okay? So what you really have to do is something very simple. You just increase your lowest standard. All right? So from tolerating a blown challenge, which could be like a minus 10% loss, or even for some cases, I hear people blowing their full accounts. Like you deposit, let's say $500 and you lose it all. Like that is 100% loss. So your lowest standard is like crazy. So what you really have to do is just increase the lowest standard. So let's say that right now we're no longer going to be tolerating a minus 10% loss. Our lowest standard right now is minus 5% loss. Okay, so we are not going to tolerate anything lower than that. So what this does, is as we move our lowest standard, right now, this is the lowest point that we can go to before we start picking up ourselves together. This at the same time is going to move our equilibrium line up. Okay, so pretty much right now, also the highest standard is automatically also going to increase. Because as the low is increasing, this is your, like the cost, the effect is also that the highest is increasing. And your equilibrium line also moves. Because right now, instead of going from plus 10 to minus 10, you're probably going to have a higher standard here. You're probably going to start getting a little bit closer to payout maybe. Then you're going to start falling back to some old habits, but you're no longer going to be falling below minus 5% because you're going to be having risk management in place. You're going to be having habits in place, and you're not going to tolerate anything that is below that. And that pretty much works with everything in life. Let's say that currently your weight, lowest standard for your weight is like, I don't know, let's say 60 kilograms, right? Or let's work in my case. Let's, for example, say 70, okay? So if I drop below 70, I feel like I'm starting to get really weak. in my case, because I'm skinny, right? And I don't want to really get below 70 kilograms. So of course, then when I get to, for example, 73, 74, I feel really good and I start seeing myself starting to slack. And then I get back to equilibrium, which is like, let's say 71. And then I'm starting thinking, okay, maybe I should start doing something. But if I don't, then I fall to my lowest standard, which is 70. And then I have to once again start picking up myself to get back to my goal. What if I just make my lowest standard not 70, but I make it 72 right now? So I'm not going to tolerate anything below 72 kilograms, for example. Okay, and then automatically my highest standard is potentially going to increase, because I'm no longer going to be going below 72, and my equilibrium line is also going to increase. So guess what? You're making incremental progress. And the more later on you raise that line and you raise that line and you raise that line, the more the equilibrium is also going to move higher, and the more your highest standard is also going to improve. And this, if you repeat this for long enough, you have no idea what happens to your life. Okay? So it's all about setting new standards. Take your lowest point and simply increase your lowest tolerable standard. And by doing this, you simply actually determine a new version of yourself and you take action on it. Because you are the architect of your life. You are in control. As I told you, take control. Don't blame the externals. You are in full control of everything that happens to you or for you. Okay? And then simply what you put in is what you get out. You also have to take action. You have to start working towards becoming that new person with those new standards that you determined, and you start building up into that person. So for example, if your current lowest standard is a blown account, then you change it to a minus 5% loss. And you do not tolerate anything below that. And you ensure that you do not dig a hole below 5%. So you take actions in place if you get there. If you currently work out 2 times per week, that is your minimum. Okay, that is your lowest standard. Then you change it to working out 5 times per week. That is your new standard. That is your new identity. You are right now a new person who works out 5 times a week, and that is your lowest standard. And if you do not work out 5 times a week, then you're not living up to your standard. You're not taking action, and pretty much you're going to digress. Because if you're not improving, you're going down. There is no middle ground, right? If you're currently not journaling your trades, then you ensure every single day you end up with a journal of your day. You journal all the executed trades, you journal all of your emotions and all of your learnings, because right now you determine that, and you are now a trader who journals, and not journaling for you is not tolerated. If you don't end up the day with a journal, this is not who you are. You do not pretty much allow this to happen. If you're procrastinating on doing the work, you ensure that you put in 2 hours of work daily. You cannot finish the day without putting in those 2 hours. You do not tolerate that. And that is simply how you set up new standards, which is mainly setting up your lowest tolerable standards. Okay, so you do not tolerate something that is actually higher from what you used to do. And by doing this, you immediately become a better person. And it's a lot easier to manage, because people will do everything not to fall below their lowest standards, but usually will not do a lot to achieve their dreams. So if we pretty much reverse engineer that, right, then why don't we just focus on the lowest points and bring them back up, which is going to simply take us to our dreams. Okay? And after you work on setting new standards, step number 4 is very easy. Just rinse and repeat. Just remember, cause and effect. What you put in is what you get out. It's time for action. It's all going to happen through consistent action. It's really good that I share with you this concept, but this just is not going to happen if you don't take action on it. Because how it looks like at the end is it looks something like this, okay? Once you work on your standards, it's going to be time to start taking action. And that is always going to be your decision point. The famous to be or not to be, to do or not to do, to become or not to become. This is exactly the place at which you have to make a decision whether to take massive action or, of course, to start digressing and fall back into old habits. So then from your action, you take massive action that to account for your lowest standards, to account for your standards, which is pretty much, again, all the things we spoke about. And then you know what the beauty is? You get the result. And this result is usually going to be something a lot better than what it used to be. All of a sudden, you're going to start seeing yourself after you take the action to, for example, journal. Hey, I'm starting to become a better trader. I'm starting to see a lot of patterns. okay? And you start experiencing your new reality. You start becoming that new person by simply setting up new lowest standards. And then as you get the results, you're also going to be getting feedback. You're going to start learning things. You're going to start iterating your actions as well. And then guess what? When you experience that new reality, it also reinforces you to get back to action, because right now you're motivated, you're seeing yourself growing. You also can start even pushing further your lowest standard. And once again, you get that feedback from the result. It all comes back to the action again, the decision point. Are you gonna keep persisting, or are you gonna fall back to bad habits? If you do, everything is pretty much blown away. But if you keep persisting, and the more you repeat that cycle, and the more, as I said, the more, if that is your minimum, the more you raise your minimum, the more you raise your minimum, the more you raise your minimum, all of a sudden, your minimum is actually going to be staying profitable. And your maximum is gonna be like scaling really, really, really big. All right? That is simply how it works, and it's a very powerful way to grow without relying on motivation, without relying on visualization, and without relying on affirmations as well. And remember, nothing great happens fast. It takes time and it takes effort. You just have to take the first step. You just have to take that first action, okay? And then, of course, you have to persist. Set a standard, set your lowest standard to yourself that you're going to persist through anything that happens. And I promise to you, it's going to be life-changing, okay? So let me know what you think about the concept of the human thermostat. Are you going to actually apply this to your life? Do you see yourself applying to this to your life? Let me know in the comments what new standards, what new low standards you're going to implement in your life. Write it down so that you actually put it out there in the universe and commit to it. All right? Because without action, nothing is going to happen. I now wish you an amazing success going forward. It's time to start building your new identity with brand new standards and start crushing all of your goals.